arguments we hear about that is that social skills are something that should be learned in the home. I'm always the first person to agree with that. I completely agree that this is something that should be taught in the home. And actually, Mitch and I had this conversation a little while ago, too, with regards to his 2 kids. The problem becomes, and our table actually talked about this a few minutes ago, the framework for how we gain those social skills has been disrupted, in some cases not only disrupted once, but on a continuum of disruption. We don't get this anymore, handed down from our grandparents to our parents to our kids to the next generations. That interruption actually occurred probably about 40 years ago, and in a lot of cases we haven't recovered. This was shocking to me. She said, part of my problem with why we can't teach more is because we're so busy contending with issues. That was her statement. And she says, we're always contending with issues that go on. We're always dealing with behavior. She says, out of a 35-minute average teaching period, I'm lucky if I get 15 minutes of actual instruction. That's shocking. So we have all these different cultures, all of these different expectations, and these different understandings of what works. But ultimately, there is an expectation in this job market of what will work in this job market. So that becomes a real challenge. So why do we care? The impact on our schools is nothing short of staggering. I don't know if you recall, not that we're talking any political leanings here. I understand you're a rather politically charged group here. Oh, be careful. Terry Bergeson, when she was doing a re-election campaign for State Superintendent of Public Education, I don't know if you saw the commercials. There was a whole big media splash about how she was essentially bragging that 92% of Washington State seniors graduate proficient. Well, I immediately went to that and said, wait a minute. Well, what's the flip side of that? You mean to tell me that we're graduating 8% of students who aren't proficient? Why are we graduating anybody who's not proficient? And certainly that proficiency statistic speaks nothing to our 25 to 30% dropout rate in the state of Washington, which has not appreciably changed in a couple of decades. But the thing that you don't see is that consistently in the top 3 reasons for why teachers leave the profession is because they get burned out because of classroom management and discipline issues. They don't talk about that one. And frankly, I don't know about you, but if I was in a job where I could not feel productive and could not get my job done, you couldn't pay me enough to stay there. It's more than just pay. The achievement gap, our low-income and minority students, again, we keep talking about how to raise their level of education. But again, our achievement gap, consistently, in spite of all the money we throw at the problem, remains high, and it is not narrowing. Wasted taxpayer dollars. Right now, again, I challenge you to think education budget. You keep hearing about how much the budget is going to be needing to be cut and how much education will suffer. Well, right now, there's an enormous impact on budget dollars and on taxpayer dollars. And even if you don't have kids directly or indirectly involved in the school system, chances are very good. You're taxpayers. I want to show you where some of that money is or isn't going. And finally, those of us who are employers, here's a huge issue. Our students are not coming out of the school system adequately prepared for the job market. Number 1 complaint by employers right now is that our young people lack the soft skills to succeed in the marketplace. I'm a Rotarian. I'm an idealist. I also happen to be a pragmatist. So I always like to challenge this part and say, you know, the 4-way test, just imagine, what if every single person in the community, not just Rotarians, but we all learned and practiced the tenets of the 4-way test? Is it the truth? Bullet number 1. Really what we're talking about is the underlying virtues of honesty and integrity. Is it fair to all concerned? We're talking about fairness, but are we not also talking about equality? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? There we're talking about empathy, caring, kindness, and respect. Those are those 4 virtues that are in play at that particular point. And finally, would it be beneficial to all concerned? Cooperation, consideration, and once again, fairness. And notice that word, beneficial to all concerned. Not just the people who can help me out, not just somebody who can do me a favor, not just somebody I like, but in all of my interactions, to all concerned. So why do I believe then that social skills must be taught in the classroom? Well, what we need to do is we need to integrate social skills training, social skills curriculum directly into the classroom environment. We have to do it in such a way that everybody is involved, everybody is supported. That means the teachers, that means the students, that means the staff, that means the community, that means the parents. In a lot of cases, it's not because the parents don't want to do what's right by their kids. They may not know how. They may come from a different culture that has not educated them on what is expected in this particular marketplace, on what's going to make their kids more successful. You do offer a distinct curriculum, but you cannot ever never compete with the academic objectives. In fact, what you do is you integrate that with the academic objectives. This goes back to that statistic we just said. About 43% of the teachers said they're spending more time on classroom management and behavior than they are on teaching. So I said, that's very interesting. I wonder what that is costing us. So I did it this way. We said, again, percentage of time, this is percentage of time spent on behavior management and discipline, 25, 30, 50%. I don't buy that the majority of the school districts are spending 50% or more, but whatever that statistic shows, let's be conservative. At your average elementary school of about 400 students, this is the amount of potential money that's being wasted every year. $630,000 per school, per year. Lake Washington School District, if you run it on a district level at 25% spent on classroom management, or 25% of teaching lost, it's a $24 million impact every year. But never mind. You say, even if we were to able to regain that, it's not all of a sudden like we'll spend less money. And that's true. But think of it this way. This is the same thing as productivity days. 45, 60, 90 productive days of school year lost potentially every year. So I ask you, if we could give back to the schools an additional 45 or 60 days of productive teaching time, productive learning time, do you think we'd have better outcomes? And finally, our students, when they come into the job market, we as employers will get kids that are better job-ready candidates with skills that will help them succeed in the marketplace. This is that chart that I meant to show you about academic improvement. This is a multi-year progression in schools that were, in this particular case, on our program. I can only speak to what accomplishments are in our program, but there are probably other programs that see the same kind of trends. Multi-year, this is the year they began, up to the year that we've stopped monitoring in this particular case, in this trend. You'll notice that there's a very, very positive upward trend. Very good increased academic test scores. Overall, this green line, the trend among the schools, is extremely encouraging.